This is Dr. Wayne Haid, the Watchman, on the 1st of February 2024. By now, lots of people in Trinidad and Tobago and in other parts of the world would have seen video clips of the meeting between Commissioner of Police Earla Christopher and members of our executive and the Parliamentary Joint Select Committee on National Security. And I've heard many negative comments made about the Commissioner with respect to how she answered questions. And some said that she appeared not to understand what was going on and otherwise give a negative image of the police service. And lots of people said that she should not be holding the job and that she is not equipped, qualified, or prepared to do the job. Well, I want to address it this morning by making a case for Earla Christopher. Because we can't judge a person's entire career on the basis of how they articulated themselves before cameras and in certain meetings. And let me tell you, in my honest opinion, I believe that Earla Christopher is highly educated, highly motivated, has received proper training, is hardworking, is a spiritual person, highly spiritual, and also a person of high integrity, without any allegations of corruption or anything that can besmirch her name, and that she has made the police service her home for all of her adult life. So she's a police to the bone. Now, honestly, in looking at some of the clips, it appeared to me and to many others that she was unaware of how to answer certain questions and appeared hesitant. Her body language was negative, and she had frequent pauses within her speaking that made it appear that she didn't know the answers. Now, to me, that is a problem of communication, not of competence. There are many other well-known people who know how to utilize pauses in order to get their thoughts together, which I believe is what she was attempting to do. Barack Obama famously would speak with the pauses within sentences that allowed him to get his thoughts before speaking. Other people would speak and gesticulate in a manner that allowed them to buy time to say what they wanted to say. And yet even others would use the technique of repeating the question to buy time in order to formulate and articulate a proper response. Ms. Christopher didn't use any of these techniques or other techniques to buy time. But it wasn't because, in my opinion, that she didn't know. I think she was attempting to be too careful, that she wanted to be sure that she said the correct thing in the correct manner and using the correct English enunciation and pronunciation. And that to me is a question of communication and the training that she might or might not have received in terms of how to address public and prepare for public discourse. And let me tell you something. Some people said she looked timid. Earla Christopher is not a timid person, for those who know her. And she's not afraid. In fact, sometimes I got the impression during the clip that she was biting her tongue not to say the wrong thing. And if people would remember that Earla Christopher was one of the few senior officers to stand up to Gary Griffith during his time as Commissioner of Police. So much so that Gary recently boasted that he sent her into exile, basically sending her on 2 years leave, as if that was some sort of legal penalty. No. She earned her leave and she was entitled to take her leave if you say go on her leave. Nothing was wrong with that. That was not a crime and she did not do anything wrong. But what is interesting is that while he exiled her, he kept on board another senior officer who it is alleged had several bank accounts containing millions of dollars, and there was no great scrutiny by Gary Griffith, no great investigation or attempt to have accountability, and that person remained there. That speaks more about Gary Griffith than it does about Earla Christopher. Now, let us get to what the nitty-gritty is. In addition to her attributes, it is important to know that to select a commissioner, it is very hard to find a person who is educated, qualified, experienced, of high moral integrity, and no hints of corruption and other things, and at the same time be able to articulate themselves perfectly in public. And then some people say, well, she's not a crime fighter, we need a crime fighter. Very few commissioners were known to be crime fighters. In fact, the two most known would be Randolph Burroughs and James Philbert. And even McDonald Jacob, they were involved directly in criminal investigations that is known to the public. But most of the commissioners were basically administrative. So that is not a knock against her. The question would be, how do we properly prepare her to meet the public and to articulate the views of the service in a proper manner? It would require training not only for her, but also for other members of the executive who I heard speak at that meeting and themselves did not sound like they were able to give the confidence to the service and to the public that they could lead properly. So something has to be done in that regard with respect to the commissioner particularly, but by extension, all the senior officers who aspired to the job. So before we crucify the lady for a bad performance, and yes, I admit it was a bad performance, it was not and should not be the only yardstick by which you measure her entire performance. Commissioners of police in Trinidad and Tobago have not had a good record in terms of dealing with crime. And the fact is that she also deserves high commendation, she and her other executive members, for completing a promotion exercise in which over 900 people were promoted that was in abeyance since 2008. And that was a high moral raiser for lots and lots of police officers. Yes, some mistakes were made in terms of the tabulation that led to legal challenges. I think the major problem again had to do with communication and how the matter came to the public view in the first place. The commissioner should have jumped in front, taken it out, and take charge of the narrative rather than letting it leak out and then doing a halfway kind of apology where no one was sure where that it was actually her making the apology. And that is what went wrong. Again, it is a question of communication. So let me don't beat up on the lady for this mistake. She is not responsible for the position that the country is facing with respect to guns and crime. That is a government responsibility, and not just this government, all the previous governments who roll over and allowed the criminals to reach this stage. That's another story. But what I want to say is this. Ms. Christopher needs our support. She needs our help. And she needs to also not be very sensitive, even about what I'm saying now, but to recognize what can be done to improve her overall appearance and performance before committees like the one that she was recently involved in. This is Wayne Hade, the Watchman. Have a good day, folks.